Hello and welcome to our Portland State University Computer Science Capstone presentation. My name is Paul Han, the project team lead, and we are Team 4G Client Hub. The developers who worked on this project are Min Ma, Andy Truong, Cesar Ochoa-Navarro, Jonas Persson, Michael Ridenour, and Shi Li. Before I introduce the Client Hub, I need to first briefly explain what 4G does. 4G Clinical is a software company that builds randomization and trial supply management systems, aka RTSM systems, for clinical research organizations. RTSM systems are used to control patient randomization and manage drug dispensation. It is a necessary tool used in the clinical trial process. It takes 4G Clinical on average about 8 weeks to build out RTSM systems for each client project, and during which they keep a close communication with their clients. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the 4G Client Hub. The Client Hub is a website built specifically for our sponsor, 4G Clinical, where their clients can sign in and track the progress of their RTSM builds, as well as exchange messages regarding each project with the internal project team. Essentially, it aims to centralize tools for 4G's clients, which would ultimately facilitate better communication and information management. The 4G Client Hub is a feasibility prototype, meaning that it is explicitly built to test specific features such as the Jira integrated milestone trackers and the Slack integrated discussion board. It will be used to present to the senior management at 4G, and if they're on board, it will get the necessary funding to be properly built out. Now we will demo the Client Hub. So here is the landing page, and Min designed the login page here. And we can log in using Google authentication set up by Cesar, like so. And now I'll pass it off to Andy to explain a bit more about the milestone timeline.
Yep, so below is the timeline giving a high-level overview. Essentially, it shows all of the basically milestones between different 4G studies. And scrolling up, there's a little drop-down menu to select the types of issues that you wish to look at. And right off the bat, you can see that there's color coding, which indicates which milestones have or have not been passed. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to Michael, who will go over the calendar.
Calendar displays the same information as the timeline, except in a calendar format. And then there are also buttons at the bottom so that the user can cycle between different months. And I'll hand it over to Jonas now.
Thank you, Michael. Me and Chi were responsible for making the Slack widget, which is an integration of Slack messaging services. And the web widget we programmed it from scratch, and it displays all the messages in the Slack channel selected. And you can select among 3 channels here, and allows the user to send messages to the selected channel. I just wanted to do a sample post here to show how it works. We'll just put that in and send that up. And here that shows up, and it shows up also in the Slack channel. And so this widget will allow representatives from 4G Clinical and drug companies to stay on the 4G Client Hub website with access to the information there while they type messages and interact with each other with the widget. The widget is also, as far as I know it, a world first, allowing you to very easily send the same message to multiple Slack channels. And all you have to do is check the all box here. And another useful feature is that it does not require a Slack account to use it. And so here I'll demonstrate how it will send to all channels. So we see it there, and we can go here and check, and indeed it was sent to all channels. And we had a request from the stakeholder to make the design pop. So we spent a lot of time on creating a modern look with cascading style sheets. And to further improve the user experience, we have a lot of interaction effects with the loading screen, clearing the input down here, and updating the title of the channel right up here. And this really helps usability and knowing what you're doing. And now I'll be handing it back to Paul for the project overview.
All right, so a quick overview of the project. So 4G currently relies on emails as a primary tool to communicate with their clients regarding client projects, which has its downsides regarding security, information management, etc. Barry, our sponsor at 4G, would like to introduce a more sophisticated form of communication, which integrates a variety of tools used at 4G and streamline services for their clients, which would save time for both parties involved. The 4G Client Hub aims to solve this issue. 4G uses Jira to manage client projects and Slack for internal communication. The milestone trackers in the Client Hub dynamically pull the client project schedule information using the Jira API, which allow clients to track progress of their RTSM builds. Clients can then use the Slack widget to reach out with any questions regarding their projects to the 4G internal Slack channel, which are also integrated using the Slack API. With the Client Hub, there's no need to shuffle through emails anymore. All project-related information will be stored in one place. Target audience. So our target audience is corporate clients who need to streamline services for their clients, which would ultimately facilitate better communication between them and help keep project-related information organized. We assume that our target audience builds products for their clients and they need to keep a close communication with them during this build period. We also assume that they use Jira or a similar project management system to manage client projects and use Slack or a similar messenger system as a primary communication tool. And now we will go into more detail about each of the main features, and Andy will start us off.
So again, to reiterate some of the features of the timeline, I included media queries that basically change the timeline to constrain to smaller resolutions. Again, we have color coding to show different progress for each milestone, green being dates that have passed and orange being ones that have not. And then also, again, it's able to be dynamically flipped through the drop-down menu. And as you can see right here, given like a 1920p resolution, you have a sort of traditional timeline setup. But as it gets smaller, we have it changed to just circles. With that being said, I'm going to pass it on to Michael. He's going to go over to the calendar.
The calendar also displays information related to a specific case study. And we also have it set up so that on smaller screen sizes, the Slack, the calendar, and the timeline all stack on top of one another. So that way it saves screen real estate. And I'll hand it over to Chi.
The Slack integrated discussion board widget contains these main features. It can send and display messages to and from multiple Slack channels without the need for a Slack account. This relies on the Slack API framework. A Slack application was created and set up in order to provide the means necessary to access Slack chats without the user needing to create their own account. Using webhooks as authentication, the widget sends a typed message to the list of channels, and everyone in the channel is notified through mobile notification immediately. Using various API calls in the Slack app's user token authentication, the widget is able to grab, format, and display each channel's chat and attachments, such as YouTube videos or uploaded images, on the Client Hub webpage. A user can interact with this using the front end that contains a modern interface. Features include scrollable message lists that supports opening files and viewing embedded video and chat messages, text input area for composing messages, and dynamic updates based on the actions of the user.
So I wanted to cover our system architecture, the 4G Client Hub feasibility prototype. It's a software system that delivers a website. And there are three main services for users on this website: a dynamic calendar and timeline marked with important deadlines, and an integration of the Slack messaging service, as we saw in the demo. Users' actions drive the execution of the website. Without user input, the website stays static. When the user requests the main portal page, this triggers the JavaScript on the page to make several GET requests to the backend. And on the backend, the processing functions use Jira and Slack APIs to gather data necessary to populate the calendar, timeline, and the Slack messaging widget. This is a major feature of the architecture we built, that it collects raw data from different third parties on the web through API calls, and then uses that data to deliver the dynamic calendar, timeline, messaging service all on the same web page. And this also integrates Jira project management services and Slack management services into the web portal so that they are also available to the user. Thank you. I'd like to hand off to Cesar now for the rundown on our tech stack.
Thank you, Jonas. So everything was put together using Python, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. To implement the user authentication, we use Google's OAuth API, which allows clients outside of 4G to log in securely, display their assigned projects. Slack and Jira APIs were used on the backend side, where Git and Post REST services allowed us to grab data dynamically from the third-party organizations. This is all launched on Django, which is a Python-based web framework. So now I'll pass it on to Min.
Yes, thank you, Cesar. So for the development process, we use Jira for project management, Slack for internal communication, GitHub to host our repository, and Zoom to conduct our weekly meetings. We follow an agile development process with 1 to 2 week sprint circles. We met twice a week to share progress, blockers, and ideas. We met with the sponsor once a month to share our progress and receive feedback. And next slide, please. Yeah, so here is an overview of our milestone timeline.
So as you can see, everyone was involved in the research process as well as learning to use the Django framework. I was in charge of scheduling and task delegation. Min was in charge of front-end styling, and Cesar did Jira API integration. Andy built the milestone timeline tracker, and Michael built the milestone calendar. And she and Jonas were both involved in the Slack API integration as well as building out the Slack widget. Unexpected events and challenges. So we were initially assigned with the point of contact at 4G who was familiar with the tech stack and could provide some guidance throughout the project. And we communicated about setting up a meeting for over a month, but due to his busy schedule, he was reassigned to other tasks before we ever got a chance to meet with him. This set us back quite a bit and slowed us down because it took longer to get critical information regarding the project. But we were able to get back on track and overcome this hurdle by planning ahead, sharing ideas, and staying optimistic. We also struggled for a bit trying to set up the API tokens because GitHub token detection would invalidate tokens necessary for requesting API data, which would break our backend logic. We found a workaround for now, but this is something that 4G would definitely need to consider. So as you can see, we've learned a lot of lessons throughout this project. I won't list it all, but you can take a look here. Thank you everyone for watching our presentation. And I want to give a special thanks to Bruce, the Capstone coordinator at PSU, for all the guidance he provided throughout the project. And I also want to give a special thanks to Barry Moore, the director of delivery at 4G Clinical, who came up with the project idea that made all of this possible.